Would my daughter be looked after? Would my daughter be able to cover herself at night? Who'd look after my daughter when I'm gone? So the questions going through her mind. See, the cancer was quickly ravaging through her body, and she kept wondering who would cover me at night. That was her fear, that was her worry. That was 1989. She was 40, I was 10. Unknown to me, 20 odd years later, I too would wonder who would cover my daughter. I too would wonder who would look after my daughter, who would teach her my ways and the ways of my mother before me. That was 2012. 870. 870 is the number of minutes taken from my life. Minutes spent lying flat on doctors' operating tables, both locally and in India. 870 minutes were taken from my life after I was told I had about 6 months to live. I needed what he was smoking. You need to meet me to understand. You can't tell me I have 6 months to live. But he said it. I had exactly 259,200 minutes left. Time was ticking. It was ticking fast. All this is in the past 5 years. Now, a lot can happen in 5 years. Ask a sitting president. Newborn can actually enroll to go to class 1 in those 5 years. But in 5 years, all I've done is fight. And fight I have. See, when they said I had 6 months to live, what they didn't say is I had a desmoid tumor. So this tumor is what a desmoid tumor attacks the connective tissues of your body. So this is what holds you upright. So it's your cornerstone. And that's what the tumor was eating at. Now, thankfully, my tumor was aggressive, fast-growing, and benign. But that didn't mean I didn't need the same type of treatment. I did. Now, the stats were not comforting at all. This information had come just as the heavens had shone on me, because what had happened in 2010, my then 4-year marriage had come to a grinding halt. As in, our story died. In 4 years. As in, the gifts had not even been unwrapped, all of them. It was a wrap. 2 months later, I lose my job. And I'm thinking, okay. As I'm contemplating on what to do with this life, there I am, obsessed with getting a revenge body, just so that he can regret. As I'm doing that, I discovered there's a lump, but it's not in my breast. It's just below, just above my ribs, somewhere in between there. And this is what led me to a path of seeking doctor after doctor. As I'm trying to go through my treatment and try and figure out what it is, my mom says, no, it must be the fat you're losing. It can't be anything serious. I say, okay, fine. I holiday with a couple of my friends in Watamu. Now I got worried. I couldn't drink. I couldn't smoke. I couldn't swim. Something was definitely wrong with this plan. And I knew, okay, so Nairobi is going to be my next stop, straight out of Watamu. And that's what I did. And then began my free fall. The stats, like I said, were not comforting because a desmoid tumor, as rare as it is, in 1 million people, 2 to 4 get diagnosed with it. Survival is 1 to 2. So without any contradiction, you're actually in the presence of a 1 in a million girl. So I can't take a compliment. But that wasn't going to be easy. The easy part was knowing what we were dealing with. So the doctor says, your options are Morocco, India, and SA. And now I'm a lastborn. I'm the only girl. I am the apple of my father's eye. Of that, I'm sure. So we're in the hospital office with my entire family. I'm like 30-something at the time. But they're all there, asking more questions than I was. So it was decided that I am going to India. I said, okay, sounds like a fair deal. And off we went, my mom, my dad, later his sister, and my cousin. When Ashu said, you go with everyone, you go to India with everyone, right? Everyone. We were there. So what happened to this monster, it had found itself lodged squarely in my left stomach muscle. Could you lift your left hand? As in some instruction. Could you please lift your left hand? Put your right hand over it, over your left muscle. Now cough. So what you feel there, depending on how much effort you put in your daily activities, what you felt there is your left rectal sheath muscle. I don't have that muscle because this tumor came. Now, if you've done history, you remember the Germans in Tanganyika, scorched earth policy. That's what this tumor did. It ravaged everything in its wake, completely. So I stand here with outer muscle. I'll tell you how I get to stand here. So we're in India, and these doctors are explaining all sorts of things. And I'm there again, my family is there, so they'll decide if this is what we're doing, we'll do. And they said, yes, we're going ahead. So it was decided my dad would become a donor of part of his muscle because this was going to be a mutilating surgery. This time I'm thinking, okay, what's the worst that could happen? I die. That really is the worst that could happen. But I was sure that I would wake up in heaven, so I wasn't worried. But I wanted to live here. I wanted milk and honey here, not there. I said, here. And the gold here. And we kind of made an agreement. But I wrote a goodbye letter to my then 3-year-old daughter. And it said, Button, if you're reading this, means mommy didn't wake up. And this is how your life is going to go. And I had explained, plus the song at her wedding. I had that down to a T. It was not going to not happen. And I had promised a look down. And when I was going into surgery, I asked my dad, will you look after my daughter? And he said, no. Yeah, and Jock is not the only one with that dad. My dad said no. He said, you're coming out of this thing and you're going to raise her. I thought, yeah, okay, cool. 8.5 hours later, a team of 10 doctors, oncologists, sarcoma specialists, plastic surgeons, they would be responsible for the loss of that stomach muscle, but they got the tumor, and it hadn't spread beyond the entire muscle. But as they took that out, they left me a little gift, a praline mesh. So think of a really gisty sieve, right, without the handle. So that was inserted there to hold my insides inside, so that we don't have any spillage. Yeah. But my doctor, who had visited Nairobi once or twice, kept saying, nyama choma is good for you. We have a lot of fat to work with. And I said, okay. And they were able to spread the fat right above the praline mesh. So So I did wake up from the surgery. I woke up and instantly got promoted to a ceiling consultant because all I could do was lie flat. I was thoroughly high on morphine, thoroughly. For 8 days, and then they said on the 9th day.
Arise.
No. They said on the 9th day. On the 9th day, they said I could actually, with the help of 2 nurses, sit upright. And I'm thinking, sit. I've been flat for 9 days. Why can't we walk? And they said, there's something we didn't quite tell you about this process. It would take me 8 months to walk upright, which I did with the aid of crutches. But that particular time, it took me 8 days, on the 8th day, to take 1 upright sit. And then another 2 days later, to take 2 steps around the hospital bed, and eventually a few steps away. All this time, my folks were by my side as I took these steps. I was discharged on my birthday and allowed to recover at a nearby hotel. But thrice a week, I would have to come back for wound dressing. Now, when they took out the tumor, I had 38 haphazard staples across my stomach. So, you couldn't tell when they're cleaning where they're touching because now the nerves are gone, so there's no feeling. So you're just there looking at this, a sugar doing, and you're just cleaning, and I can't tell. Then my belly button now became dislodged, so it looked like a mere smiley, and I couldn't tell where they were cleaning. So I just used to lie there and like, okay, let's do this. But eventually they said I was well enough to go home, and I came back home. What hurt when I got home was that my daughter couldn't recognize me. She couldn't recognize a mom who had come back. That pain, to date, is more painful than the physical pain. She sat, the day I came back home, she sat there, looked at me. She went back to my second-born bro and sat with him. She couldn't figure out, because I was still carrying that pain. Those 8 months it took me to walk, I worked from home. My former employer, God bless them, for a day and a half kept me on full pay and set up an office in the house. When I needed to go see a client, I would arrive early. It's not at because the ethics were good. I would arrive early because I needed them to not see me hobbling in. It had refused to register in my head that this is going to be my reality. So I'd come in early and sit. So when they're leaving, I'm like, no, I'm waiting for another client. And they would leave. And that's how life was. And we got through that stage. May 2014. I'm back in Delhi, not for a review. What had happened earlier, I'd gotten the worst imaginable migraine just around the time my best friend was getting married. And it got me back in hospital. And this pain was smack behind my right eye, right above, like if you did a right angle over there. And I'm like, this is not a migraine that I know. I've had migraines forever. My dad has had migraines. I didn't know this pain. So loads of tests later, they come and say, you have a cyst in the brain. I'm like, okay, something else you want to say? Say, no, that's it. I say, okay, fine. So what are we doing about this? This time I was alone. And they say, your options are surgery. I'm like, you don't know what is in my head. You were not about to meet the skeletons running free in my head. I was not going to allow them to crack my head open. But I needed to leave. So we went back to India. This time, my mom had gotten sick in between, and so we were 4 family members in India. It was my dad as a primary caregiver, my mom, my second-born bro, and myself. At one point, my dad had 2 family members in ICU and 1 in general ward. Yeah. The doctor said there's nothing they can do about the cyst. I said there's nothing I can do about the fact that I want to leave. So we had to agree. So I'm still in the ring. I'm still fighting. But I'm not alone. My family is there with me. and my friends. So that's not too bad. Come along May of 2017. I was nothing but expectant. No. I was expectant, but no. Yes. So, like every Nairobian, I was looking forward to a lovely weekend. It was 12th of May, was a Friday. I was totally excited about the end of that day. But then the pain came back. This pain I had not known. So this pain kept increasing. You know how Ashu said the tumors look for friends? This pain kept increasing. And I'm like, something's wrong. To the point where I even called a dentist. As in, you're like, okay, it's a tumor, but dentist, your nearest, just come. It was bad. It was bad. I happen to have 2 neighbors who are professor and doctor dentist. So, and they came. But I was so used to pain. So my kuyo arms actually have purpose. So I would stick a pain patch on them. I would get morphine. I do have a stash at home. I would get morphine and I would be fine. But this pain was not responding. This was not pain I understood. By morning, my family had rushed me to hospital. Imaging revealed that my interesting intestines had decided to get themselves entangled in between the mesh, that gisty sieve. So you picture when you have a plank of wood that's not completely filed and you run your finger through it. Okay, it's not that bad. But yes, something like akin to that. So that was what was happening. So they had gone through and they got tangled and couldn't come out. So the struggle is in that pain. And so they said, next thing has to be surgery. I told them, guys, I'm done with this surgery business. I am done, completely done. Because the next worst thing was what? Gangrene of the intestines. I thought, okay, that would have bad breath, but I don't know. I'm not too sure about that. But then the doctor said, gangrene of the intestines, then it would fester, then you'd poison from inside out, and then you would die. I said, okay. I pulled out my letter, my will. Don't forget, earlier, when the marriage ended, my divorce was in my outbox. My custody for my daughter was in my inbox, which was already full, and this delete button was not working. So none of this was working for me. So yes, July 2017, I went back to India. This time we only went with Dad. You know, like a thirdborn. Thirdborn, you don't send many guys to get them from Hosi. So, firstborn, there are all these guys dancing and matatus and look like you're going for graduation. No, this one we just went with my dad. 4-hour surgery, and they then cut what looks like a T-junction on this side, on the left. Because now they're ducking between these staples that they had put earlier. I'm like, you're the same guys who did this work, so knock yourself out. And they put a second Prolene mesh. Now, they had to first repair the hole, and then put another mesh, and then seal that and still make me look. Yeah. Picture how you'll all look when your dentures need to come out in the evening when you're older, except those 25-year-olds. Yeah. How your gums collapse. That's what happens every evening when I have to remove the binder belt that I wear. So that surgery happened, and because we had already lost so much muscle, they had to hook it onto a string of remaining muscle, a tendon of remaining muscle, which meant then I had to sleep at 45 degrees, because then I couldn't lie flat. But I was in cabs. Yeah. And I had learned to successfully sleep through math. So quickly, I went back to my days, and I would then have to stay upright, sort of upright, for 45 minutes. For 45 degrees through the night. With time now, I've been able to move a bit lower, and now I can lie down. But that was what that life was like. But this whole time, I'm with My dad in hospital. Now you need to understand my dad is a traditional Kuyo man. Traditional. And then you make him your primary caregiver. Daughter. So when would have to wear the stockings because of, to prevent any clots. So he's there with a kanga, trying to arrange himself. And I told him it's okay. We won't tell guys in Nairobi what happened. Just let's do this thing, And he's like, Maito manego edete. As in, I love you, my mother, completely. Because now, short of dressing you like this, it was hard. I won't lie. That life was hard. I can laugh now. So, it took me some time, and I was angry. I wasn't about to get back on my feet. I had done so well. I was all of 83 kgs. I'd moved down to 64. I was happy. I was excited with life. Things were looking up. That job that they had given me, they'd even put me in the newspaper. Those appointments. I'd never been in the paper for anything positive, anything. As in, And things were good, and now we are back at scratch. We are back. I was angry. I was bitter. We didn't have pleasant conversations with God. Then I chose to fight because I remembered before this universe was blessed with my awesomeness. Sorry. My mom had goiter. And it sapped the soft voice but left her with neck candy where the scalpel had etched its way down here, the bottom of her neck. Then 9 years later, I watched her painfully battle cancer. Not once. Breast cancer came. Ovarian cancer came. Shortly thereafter, diabetes sapped out the sugar in her life. 2012, she suffered a mild stroke. May 2012. Go figure that the next May 2012 I would get sick. 2013, her kidneys collapsed and she needed a transplant. A gift that she can never repay came in the form of my brother's kidney. And in 2014, that time when I was saying we're all in hospital, that's why she was there as well. She got a kidney. She has 3, my brother has 1. They're good to go. So if my mom could have fought all this and still keep her head up high, who was I to give up? So fighting, I chose to fight. See, life is fair because as I began to fight, I looked at the things that were around me, and there was my daughter. I get to love her from the front row. I get to watch her grow. I go home to her daily. She's teaching me to love and laugh again. We watch reruns of Bolt, all that, and we laugh like it's the first time, all the time. And she's teaching my heart to beat again, no matter the package it's in right now. She's amazing. And then I have parents who only God can ever repay them for what it is they've done in my life. They're actually here. See, my parents, they've stood by me, with me, and for me. Each of my 5 surgeries, they've been there. Well, except the CS. They've been there with me. All of them. They've been there. And they stood with me. And now they get a second chance to raise me because they're helping me raise my daughter. In those past 5 years, I've been blessed to bathe in the peace that comes from sharing my pain with my brothers. There are 2 wives and there are 7 children. They too are here. My brothers love me like they've just met me. As in, they love me like I could never love myself. They have never left my side at all. Try dating with two brothers. They've never left my side. And they've been there through it all. And they hold me up more than any of that connective tissue that I lost. That's what they do for me. Then I have amazing, leaner, inner circle of friends now, because with time, there are people who can't recognize my voice now, and I'm fine with that. You don't have to take everyone with you, and I'm fine with that. And those leaner, inner circle of friends, some of them are ex-colleagues. They've driven on the wrong side of Valley Road if I have an attack in the office and take me to hospital. They have knocked on heaven's doors for me when pain had choked the words out of my throat and I couldn't even speak. These friends have stood with me. Friends and even perfect strangers, they've given over and over again of their time and of their money. And I'm grateful. You see how fair this life is? I recently started a farm. I resigned and started a new farm. I said, you know what? We have to do this thing. So I have a career I love. I'm excited about it. I have gentle lips I'm kissing now. I have a couple of sunsets I would like us to see together. So if you're here, please, I want to see those sunsets. But through that, all I know is I'm living this life with delicious ambiguity. I don't know what tomorrow holds, but he who holds my tomorrow is just. And he gives his gifts with two hands. See, I was angry because curveball after another was coming my way. But if not me, who? If he asked me, who should I then take this to? See, the landlord up there, he's my friend. I have his name, I have his number. I call him Rafa. Because he bent me over in pain and I could touch the hem of his garment. And of that I'm convinced. That this life is fair because if my mom could do it, so can you.